What's up, everybody? This is Reverend Guns, and today we're going to be replacing the extractor spring and firing pin spring on this Beretta 92FS. I'm using the Pro spring kit from MCARBO. First thing I want to do before we get started is make sure it is clear and safe. So right behind the trigger here, you want to press the button that is the magazine release. And when you do, it pops the magazine out. We don't need the magazine, so set it aside. Then, this is the slide lock. When you slide all the way back, you can push up on the slide lock and it will hold it in place. And then you can look down the barrel and see there's nothing in there. If you press down on the slide lock, it'll uncock it. And now we know it is safe and clear to get started. I'm going to set this aside for a moment. Tools you'll need. You'll need a 1/16, a 3/32, and a 1/8 inch punch. You'll need a very small screwdriver, a hammer, preferably with a metal side and either a plastic or rubber side, and a bench block. Let's start taking it apart. On the other side of the gun here is a button. You will press and hold it, and that'll allow you to flip the gun over, and right here is the switch to release the slide. You pull it down and it releases the slide. You can let go of the button and slide the slide right off. We don't need the frame for this, so I'm going to set that aside. We've got to take out the guide rod and spring, so you want to compress that, lift up slightly, and that'll allow you to pull it out, set it to the side. Then right behind the barrel here is a button, a release button. When you press it, it'll allow you to pick up the barrel and slide it out. So first thing we're going to do is pull out our bench block, and we are going to remove the locking block here. So to do that, there is a pin right here that we will use to punch out, and that will release the locking block. Now keep in mind, this is under spring tension, so you want to hold that while you're tapping it out so it don't go flying across the room. And trust me, it's happened once or twice before. So let's set that on there. Let's get our 1/16 punch and start tapping it out. Okay, we've got the pin out. Now, like I said, this is under tension, so put your finger here before you slide out the punch, and then you can slowly release the spring tension and drop the spring and the locking block. And there's the pin, and we'll set this stuff aside. Don't need that for now. Next thing we're going to do is remove this safety. If you notice, the safety has kind of a bigger arm on one side and a smaller arm on the other side, so that's how I'm going to refer them, the big arm and the small arm. We're going to remove the small arm first, and if you see on the very top of it, there's two little pins here, 1 and 2, that we need to tap out. It's easiest to go from the underside and hit them from this side and go straight down. So that's what we're going to do. Take your 16th punch, line it up, take your hammer, start tapping it out. There's one. There's two. And we'll grab these pins real quick. You look at these pins, they are exactly the same, so it's not going to matter which way you put them back in when we start reinstalling all this stuff. Let's set that aside, kind of keep stuff together. Now you should be able to just wiggle out the small arm, just like that. we'll set that with the pins so they stay together. Now, something you need to be aware of, there is a detent in here. There's one on each side. Can you see it? It's on the bottom here. And there's this one's smaller and not under as much tension as the big arm is. This one's got a much bigger detent in it and a much tighter spring, and so this is what we're going to have to really watch for when we go to remove this to keep it from flying away and getting lost. So to pop it out, you're basically going to have to push the small arm side out as you're slightly twisting up on the big arm here. Now, I'm holding it like this on purpose with my finger covering the big arm because I'm pretty much going to catch that big detent trying to come out. So when you go to push it upward, to be able to release that, you've probably seen this when you flip your safety. This is basically an extension to your firing pin. Your firing pin is basically two parts. So when you put this on safe, it moves the extension out of the way and doesn't allow the hammer to hit anything, so it will not hit the firing pin. So we have to push this extension in, and then it's a twist up and push out, kind of a all-in-one motion here. So I'm going to push this in, slightly push, and twist up. Ha! Caught it. So this is how I'm holding it, as you can see, and what you'll see right here is the larger detent and spring. It's my finger stopped it, is what happened here. Now keep in mind, my thumb is covering that hole because there's that small detent there as well. So keep pushing out just a little bit until you can slide the whole safety out. And you kind of twist it out in the whole motion. And now I can release my thumb, and you can see that detent that I was talking about on the small side. So let's pop out the spring and detent there. That's what it looks like. Okay. And then in the large side, there's a spring and detent. Okay. It's quite a bit bigger, so it still kind of matches. Small detent, small spring goes to the small arm. Large detent, large spring go to the big arm. Let's keep this stuff together. Set it aside. Give you a quick little preview on the safety here. Like I said, there's like two parts to your firing pin. This has a little plunger in it. Should just fall out. There we go. Okay, this is like the second part of your firing pin. This is what actually hits the firing pin when the hammer hits. It'd be that direction. It hits this side, the big part hits the firing pin, and that's what strikes the primer. So you'll notice that it's got a recessed hole on one side and a smooth hole on another. The recess is what's going to hold basically the head of this plunger and when we put it back together, and it only goes that way. If you try to put it the other way, it's impossible to put this back together. So we're going to set this stuff aside, and now you can see that we have access to the firing pin in here. It's that piece right there. Okay, it's still being held by the extractor, so we've got to remove the extractor to get the firing pin out. So basically it's that's why we're doing both of these at the same time, because they're both involved with each other. To remove it, there's a pin on top. Okay, you'll want to go in from the bottom because this has a head on it. So when we put it back in, we'll go in from the top. So grab your 1/16, and it's this hole right here. Okay, and when you go in, it's going to start angling itself. It's at a 45. So when you start pounding on this, don't be surprised if this starts kind of shifting towards you, because it's just lining up with itself in the hole there. And we want to make sure you keep the punch in there when you get that head out. Not even budging it. There we go. Got it out. So leave the punch in there, okay? And you'll see on this has a head on it. So we'll have to go in from the top when we put this back in, so that head will lock it into place. Let's set that aside. Now, to remove before you remove the punch, make sure you're holding on to the extractor, because the spring in here is going to release and try and kick it out. So hold the extractor firmly and slide out your punch. And now we can slowly release the extractor. And I've got my finger held back here because the firing pin, as you can see, is now exposed. It released it, and it wants to come out as well. So let's go ahead and remove the extractor. And we'll also take out the little spring. Okay, tiny little spring. And we can also just pour the firing pin and spring should just pop right out. Okay, so these two springs are what we're removing. Got the firing pin spring and the extractor spring. We are going to put a softer firing pin spring in there, so it'll hit a little harder against the primer. And then we're putting a little stiffer extractor spring in there it helps with the performance and function of the extractor itself. So I'm going to set these aside because I no longer need these. I actually have a little bag that I keep all my spare parts in. And I've already pulled them out. We've got the new firing pin spring and the new extractor spring. And when you press down, oh yeah, that's much stiffer extractor. And yeah, that's a much softer firing pin spring. These are what we're going to put in back into the slide here. Now I technically have completely stripped the slide, so this is the same process you would do for a deep cleaning. If you want to thoroughly clean your slide, which is something, you know, even the frame, this is how you take it completely apart, so you can do all the polishing touches you want to do to it. Alright, moving on to installation of the new springs. So we're going to start with the firing pin. You're going to notice there's a couple cutouts on it. Okay, one little cutout is the little groove that the extractor sits in. That's what was holding it in. The second groove is for the locking block. It's to lock the firing pin in place. It's like a little added safety. You'll take your new spring, stick it over the end of the firing pin, so it should look like that. and you can just drop both of these right in that hole. Okay, and the big thing there is, and I'll show you, you want the extractor cutout to be flat facing up at out the extractor here. Okay, and that will allow the extractor to seat correctly when you put that in. So drop it in. If you need to adjust it, we can take a quick look and see if it's lined up. There we go. Yep, mine's lined up there. So when I go to set the extractor spring in, extractor spring goes in this little pocket right here. It sits at a 45. So when you drop it in, it should be at an angle, just like that. Okay, now we're going to take the extractor, and you'll notice there's a little red marking on it. That needs to be facing upward on the slide. So just kind of set it in there at first, so it sits in there, and now we can press the extractor and hold it. And if you need to kind of push the firing pin in to make sure it lines up and catches, you should be able to hold the firing pin in place with the extractor. Get it bigger. So basically I'm pushing from the back here, and there we go. I've got it set in. I'm holding it with the extractor, and now I'm going to take my little 16-inch punch, and from the bottom kind of wiggle your way through. You might have to kind of squeeze and release a little bit on the extractor to get this to slide all the way through, but you want this punch to be your guide for your pin that you're about to push through. Remember, it's at kind of a 45-degree angle. Just don't want to go in there, do you? Alright, got that. Let's take our 30 seconds punch to finish tapping it in the rest of the way. You want it just recessed past the slide. Alright, so should look something like that. Okay, now for the fun part, we're going to put the safety back on. Alright, so let's grab our safety here. And remember, we need the little plunger. We got the plunger that goes in only one way. Okay, wiggle it in. Should look like that. We will put the small arm spring and detent in first. So go ahead and locate that hole. Drop the spring and detent in. That way it's ready to be captured when you push in the safety. Now, the safety only goes in one way, and it's a little involved here. So when you drop it in, you'll want the handle at 12 o'clock. And when you push it in, you should hear it click. Don't push it in all the way. There we go. So what we just did there is it caught the firing pin. So now we've got to turn it. And the way I remember this is there's a flat groove right here. You want the wall of it to be at 12 o'clock. Okay, so push it in, and you can only go in so far before it tries to go all the way in, but you don't want it to go all the way in because you want to now push it in just far enough to hold the small arm detent into place. So push it down with your thumb and just kind of capture it with the end of the safety for the small side there. If you can't do that, you could use a little screwdriver, but I like using my thumb just to keep it from me pushing in the safety all the way. Okay, because we need it just far enough out that you can see the detent hole for the big arm, and you'll want to drop that spring and detent in now, just like that. So it's going to look something like that, and you're going to need your little screwdriver now. You're going to pull back on the detent, push and twist. Okay, so pull back on the detent, push and twist to get it back into its what would be, the fire setting. So let's grab our detent and push it back. And now push and twist. And it just snaps into place. So now I've got this detent in completely. I've got that detent in completely. And it should function. Slide. Our safety is now functioning. You see the plunger, the second part of the extractor here. This should be moving pretty freely. Yep. Testing that. That looks pretty good. So now we have to put on the small arm back onto the safety here. So let's grab the small arm, slide that back into place. There we go. We'll use our 1/16 punch here to line up the holes and kind of get it started. There we go. So now I've got it all the way through, and we will take one of those two pins, doesn't matter which one, and with your fingers you should be able to at least get it started. It's kind of small, so if you need little pliers or something you can, but you should be able to at least get it to sit there with your fingers. You know what? that's not working for me. So we're gonna grab some pliers here. Alright, so you're going to want to take one of those two pins. And I'm going to hold it with my pliers here and kind of push it in to get it started. And then take my 1/8 inch punch and push it down as far as I can. If you need to tap it, do so. Okay, that's mostly in, just not recessed yet. Take the punch out, take the second one. Again, I'm going to use my little pliers to just kind of hold it there and push in with my finger. Take your 1/8 inch punch and push it in as far as you can. Now we'll tap this in. The slide's trying to move, so you'll want to hold the safety on the large side here while you're tapping, so you don't try to rotate while you're doing this. Okay, so at this point, this is where we've got it. They're just sticking out a little bit, so I'm going to use my 3/32 punch. It's this one. Oh, nope. There we go. And tap it a little more. There we go. That looks good. Alright, so now it's completely recessed those pins in there. Don't need to go all the way through because they'll just come out the bottom here. But we don't want anything snagging or catching. And that leaves the locking block. That's 3 pieces. Got the roll pin, the spring, and the locking block itself. So flip over the slide here, and you'll want this spring is going to go in this hole. You'll see right down here there's a hole right there. It's going to sit in there, and then it's going to match up with this hole right here. The other end's going to go right in here. This locking block only goes in one way. It goes down with the big wall going towards the center of the slide. So let's drop in our little spring first. And it just kind of sits there, nice and pretty. Then we can take the locking block, drop it down. As long as the spring doesn't move, it should sit right into that groove, a little cutout. Alright, so now we're looking to make sure we've got the hole lined up. For the roll pin, you can just stick the roll pin in, doesn't matter which way or which side of the slide you work on. Just stick it in and try and get it caught with your hammer. Got it most of the way in there. Now we can take our 32 seconds or 3 30 seconds and start tapping that in. There, like that. You want this flush on both sides, so I got a little bit more to do. Okay, it's not going any further, so we'll move to our 1/16. Put that right in the middle. We're not trying to go all the way through, you're just trying to get it flush. Yep, there we go. So you can look now and see I've got that pin flush on both sides. And now it's time for the easy part. We're putting the barrel back in. You got the locking block and release pointing upward. Put it in the barrel slot, just kind of drop it in, push it back. It'll lock itself into place. Then we can take our guide rod and spring. Guide spring goes below the barrel here. And then you compress the guide rod, and the big head of the guide rod is going to go right here into this little half moon cutout you see. So compress that and set it into place. Should be pretty level with the slide. And we can take the frame of our pistol here and the two little notches right here, line up with the notches on the frame here. You just slide them on. I like to cock it all the way back and lock it with the slide lock again, and that will allow me to lock the slide back into place. Now we can check function. Everything seems to be functioning at the moment, and that's all there is to it. It's a little bit involved. It can be a headache, and you just don't give up on it. You saw how I did it. It's been edited down for time, but you'll get to see how I got it done. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. I also offer the online course to get your Texas license to carry a handgun. It's the 4-hour class broken down into segments and saves your progress so you can do it at your own pace. After completing the course, you can print your certificate. Then it'll help you locate an instructor close to you, no matter where you are in Texas, so you can complete the shooting portion of the course. This is all certified by the Texas Department of Public Safety. Check it out at reverendguns.com. If you have any questions or comments, please add them below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more firearms education.